Hello people, this is Sonali, the Melodramatic Bookworm. If you've been here before, welcome back, and if you're new to my channel, welcome to the Melodramatic Bookworm family. Also welcome to my December 2023 wrap-up. I read 17 books in December. I thought the number was going to be higher, honestly, but I did get some good reading done. I will not be talking about all of the 17 books because one of these books I read for a vlog, that same vlog that I've been harping on since September, October, I think. So that will be reserved for a video that will come out this month for sure. So I'll be talking about 16 books. I had a good reading month overall. There were like 4.25, 4.5, so it was good overall. So without any further ado, let's dive right into this video and let me share with you all the books bar one that I read in December 2023. My first read of December 2023 was The Blood of Olympus, the fifth in the Heroes of Olympus series by Rick Riordan, and this was, oh my god, epic. This was the culmination of this whole series where the 7 demigods coming together, they need to save the world from the Earth Mother Gaia and all of that, and there was just so much goosebumps in the last climax fighting scenes because there were demigods fighting back to back with their godly parents. You see Jason and Zeus fighting back to back. It just gives you that vision, and it's just on a different scale altogether, and I absolutely loved it. Like, Rick Riordan writes anything, I will read it without question. Next was XOXO by Axie O. So this is a story of a cellist who meets someone in her city in America, and he seems to be very thoughtful and dressed very well, and she wonders what's going on with this guy, and they hit it off. Suddenly after that night he disappears completely, but she and her mom travel to Korea because her grandmother's health isn't great. Since they're going to be there for a while, she joins a music school of there. Who should she run into but the guy who she ran into there, and she discovers that he is a K-pop star. So now how will their relationship grow, their friendship, their relationship, or whatever it is, how will it grow in the face of media, in the face of peer scrutiny, forms this entire story. And it was fun, it was sweet, it was a little cliche, it felt like, but at the time that I was reading it, that was exactly what I needed. So I just devoured it and I really enjoyed it in the end. It was nothing groundbreaking, but it was a sweet one. Oh, and the third book I read, see, I told you that I would be torturing myself by continuing the Twisted series by Anna Huang, and I did exactly that. Although I must say that the last book in this series, which is called Twisted Lies, which is the fourth in the Twisted series, wasn't as bad as numbers 1 to 3. I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is the story of the fourth girl in that girl gang. So Stella and Christian Harper. Christian Harper is a not media mogul, he's a security mogul of sorts. He owns software, security, etc, etc, and they cross paths. They come to an agreement where for a reduction in her rent, Stella needs to water the plants in his office. I mean, there's obviously a lot going on behind that particular decision or that particular transaction. But now that Jules has moved in with her boyfriend, Stella is living there alone, and the rent, she can't afford the rent, so Christian agrees to, etc, etc. Christian hasn't told Stella something, he's keeping something from her, but Stella has a stalker. There's a lot of lies involved, twisted lies involved, and how this moves forward is what it's about. And I feel like this wasn't as bad as the others, and that's the best I can come up with for this book. Next was Ace by Angela Chen, in which Angela talks about asexuality. She sheds light on the experiences of asexual people, how the heteronormativity, how the amatonormativity, which means that romance is made into the center of human existence. It's made into the and how it affects so many other people, how it is detrimental to the whole case of human existence as a whole to make it into just one thing, because there is so much more to humans than just that, is one of the things that this book is about. And I feel like this is a book that everybody should read, especially because we are used to seeing just one side of the story. We are used to seeing romance, we are used to seeing the normalization of coupling up, of finding someone to spend your life with in a romantic way, and sexuality being spoken about in this demure but also blatant manner. We have been told by our elders, we have been told by everybody who's come before us that this is what you should aspire to. You should grow up. Once you hit puberty, you're ready to get married. You get married, you have children. That's all you need to aspire to. But there's so much more to life than just that. And Angela Chen takes us through so many arguments, so many explanations in this book, in which she has interviews with asexual people, and they tell us how this heteronormativity, this amatonormativity has affected them. She also gives us different alternatives to how society can become more inclusive of asexual people to everyone as a whole. But the point that she makes is, you make society inclusive for asexual people and you see how everyone gets included by default. This was one of my few 5 stars of 2023, one of the best non-fiction books I've ever read. This is a very academic book. It's not going to be easy to read. You will probably go over the same sentence twice, thrice, 4 times, but whatever it is, it's a very, very, very important book, as I've said like 4 or 5 times already. Next was Karnas Wife by Kavita Kane, and this was a disappointment for me. I've liked Kavita Kane's works before, but this was somehow, it just didn't work that well for me. This is the story of Urvi, who is a Kshatriya princess, who in her Swayamvara, she chooses Karna. Everybody thinks that she is going to be choosing Arjuna, but she chooses Karna instead. And how society reacts, how she reacts to this whole reaction to her choosing him as her husband, and how she adjusts her life, and how their married life moves forward, and all the politics surrounding Karna and the Kurukshetra war, the political decisions, the feuding, his relationship with Duryodhana, and his family's thoughts about his friendship with Duryodhana. All of this comes together in this book, and we see it through Urvi's perspective, obviously. And it's not a very well written account, it feels like, because there's a lot of repetition, there's a lot of back and forth, but it's also very vague in the sense that she repeats herself. It sounds very moralizing. Characters from the Mahabharata tend to sound moralizing in more ways than one, but this on the other hand sounded extra preachy. It sounded like too extra. That's all I can say. It's like it was not very well rounded. Anyway, this was for a video that I wanted to put up at the end of 2023, but that did not happen. That got scrapped and moved to 2024, and then it changed form as well now. I don't know when it will go up though, but I did read it and I was like, could have been so much better. Oh, next was an audiobook that I listened to, and it was also one of the most frustrating books I've ever heard. This was Leave the World Behind by Ruman Alam. I think it is a movie, Netflix movie that's come out this month, not this month, last month itself, and unknowingly I read it around that time. This is the story of a family who are out in the countryside on vacation, and they suddenly start seeing the weirdest things. They go to the beach, they see something weird, then they come back home. The owners of the house who have rented the house out to them arrive, and something is happening. They see deers, they see flocks of birds, they see the weirdest things that are happening. Power goes out, connectivity goes out, and the whole atmosphere of the book is very confusing. Like, you don't know what they are trying to say. I've heard that the movie is good, but I feel like the book itself wasn't that atmospheric. It was very confusing. If the author wanted to instill a sense of calamity, to instill a sense of fear about the end of the world, apocalypse kind of thing, it did not happen for me. And I am one who's usually quick to get scared when I imagine things like this, but somehow this book didn't do it, and this turned out to be one of my least favorite books of 2023. I don't know what it was. Was it the audiobook? Was it that I didn't read the physical copy and I listened to the audiobook instead? Because sometimes that can happen. One format of a book will work, but the other will have completely opposite reactions coming from you. Next was another favorite Percy Jackson and the Chalice of the Gods by Rick Riordan. This is the 6th in the Chalice of the Gods series. This is the 6th in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, and it follows the events of the Heroes of Olympus series. This is the book, this is the reason why I read the Heroes of Olympus series, and nobody's complaining. So this is, it's not a complete quest of sorts. It's like a follow-up spin-off novella, but it's still part of that universe kind of thing, because it felt very simple when compared to what Percy Jackson and the others have been going through over the past however many books. So this is the story of Percy Jackson and Annabeth and Grover, obviously, and the cupbearer of the gods, Ganymede, who is the cupbearer to Zeus, has lost the Chalice of the Gods. He comes to Percy and sends him on a quest, and in turn Percy gets a letter of recommendation which he can use to enter New Rome University, where he and Annabeth, and I don't think Grover, but he and Annabeth plan to go for their further studies. So now Percy embarks on this quest with his two best friends, his girlfriend and his best friend, and they have to find out who has stolen this chalice and return it to Ganymede, return it to Zeus before the next feast. Because if it isn't there, Zeus is about to lose his mind, more than usual, that is. So that's what this book is about, and it is like laugh out loud, funny, brilliant, and I loved it. Like, I love anything that Rick Riordan writes, and returning to the Percy Jackson universe is always a very fun thing for me. I love doing it. The 7th book is also coming out, and even if they weren't, it's like eyes closed, I'll walk into this universe. So if you're wondering, is the book 6 in the Percy Jackson series good? Don't wonder, it is good. Go read it. Of course, you'll have to read the whole series. Next was End Papers by Jennifer Savran Kelly. This is the story of a bookbinder called Dawn Levitt, who works at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and she repairs books there. So one book lands on her desk, and in that she finds the cover of an old book behind which is written a queer love letter, and she now embarks on this whole sort of mini quest of sorts to find out who this was written for, who this was written to. And in addition to this, she is also an artist who hasn't created anything in a while, and there's also this battle going on inside of her where society dictates that she has to behave one way, her partner wants her to behave another way. She's in a corner, and one day when they're out at a bar, her friend becomes the victim of a hate crime, and after this, Dawn begins to fixate even more on that queer book cover in a bid to find a safe space in a world that has so much hatred against queer people. End Papers is raw, it's chaotic, it's a study of human behavior, especially in those times when we tend to lash out when we are feeling uncomfortable or when we are feeling pushed into a corner, and Dawn will be that person for you. This book is a whole arc in itself. It follows Dawn from that first discovery of that book cover and through this whole emotional rainbow of sorts, and it turns into a book that encapsulates these subjects so well. I mean, you'll have to deal with the fact that Dawn is an unlikable character at times, but when you look at her journey, it will hit you that the journey is what is about. If you're someone who likes these subjects, then End Papers is one that you should definitely pick up. My camera's battery died and I had to take a break. Anyway, okay, so the next book that I read in December 2023 was Moonrise over New Jessup by Jamila Minix. This is a historical fiction novel set in the late 1950s and early 1960s and revolves around the black community and lives at a time when segregation had just been abolished, but racism was much more widespread than it is today. This is the story of Alice. Alice and Rosie are sisters, and after their mother's death, Rosie runs away because she wants a better life, and soon their father also passes away. Then their landlord, a white man, he starts haranguing Alice, and when it comes to a breaking point, she also runs away with the intention of going to Chicago, where Rosie says she is. But on the way, she comes upon a town called New Jessup, which is an all-black town, and she realizes that this is a life that she wants. It seems too good to be true, but it is there, and with the help of some kind-hearted strangers, she starts a life in that town. She soon falls in love with Raymond Campbell, who she learns is involved in organizing activities in New Jessup in order to improve the political standing and to improve all black life in the town. How she deals with all of these upheavals forms this entire story. And I like this book, but I feel like in a bit to make the writing very poetic, the whole point of the story was lost. When Jamila Winix is talking about this town life, she makes point after point, but it feels like they don't connect. It feels like there is absolutely no destination to that journey. I know this is a story that needs to be told, however, because it is a premise that is fantastic. It shows how society needs a different mix of ideologies to function, and the importance of discussion in a community, and also how Alice and Raymond communicated with each other and all. But the writing and the absence of a bigger conflict, it sort of took away from the impact of the book for me. It is still an important book. Looking back on it, there are a lot of important points that it makes, but while reading it, I was not losing interest, but it was not piquing my interest to a higher level. It was just there, floating, plateauing. I will still recommend this book for the important points that it makes though. Next was Einstein Secretary by Matthew Reilly, and this is such a fabulous book. This is my first book by Matthew Reilly, and I enjoyed it so much I can't even. This is the story of Hannah Fisher, who is born in the early 1900s in Germany to an American mother and a German father, and she happens to be the neighbor of Einstein and his wife. And she grows up knowing Einstein and all the like. In 1910, her mother is killed in a freak. It's not even an accident, it's a terrorist attack. And then in 1919, after her father has advised for the Treaty of Versailles, he is murdered as well, and now Hannah is in danger. Einstein comes to her rescue and helps her to escape to America, where she joins a secretarial school. She graduates from there and she becomes the secretary to a huge industrialist. And how she goes from being that secretary, being an efficient, amazing secretary over there, and she becomes Einstein's secretary. From somehow unintentionally she ends up in Germany and she becomes a secretary to Albert Speer, who is Hitler's main architect. Then how she watches all of this from behind the lines, and how she puts all of this into perspective, how her actions affect Einstein, how Einstein and her relationship evolves over time, and what exactly happens to Hannah in the end forms this entire story. And this is a fast-paced, snappy thriller. I was like riveted. I couldn't put this book down. Right from the beginning to the very end, with its short chapters, with its snappy cliffhangery chapters, it is something that kept me invested, and it made me want to know what happened next. And it starts off with a funeral, and it is with that idea that I moved forward, that okay, we are moving towards that funeral, and whatever happens in this meanwhile, it's just like, oh, I need to take a breath, but I don't want to take a breath because I want to keep going with the flow of the story. Fantastic writing. So this is one book that I will highly recommend. If you are looking for a historical fiction, political thriller, this is one you should definitely check out. Next was one of my most anticipated book releases of 2023, and that was Heartstopper Volume 5 by Alice Oseman. In this graphic novel, in this volume, we see Nick and Charlie's relationship blossom and them thinking about taking the next step, but it's also crucial that they take the next step in their academic lives. So Nick is about to graduate. He needs to shortlist universities. He knows where he wants to go, but he goes on this whole tour and he needs to, decide for himself. He doesn't want to stay away from Charlie. He doesn't want to leave Charlie, but he also has to take the best decision for his career. So it's this whole situation where they are coming to terms with whatever is next for their relationship, and it is one of the most loveliest depictions of decisions taken in a relationship I've ever read. I mean, both of them are teenagers, but it's just a reflection of how we should look at supporting the people in our lives, supporting the people we love. And it's Alice Oseman. Next was a book that I was reading for that vlog, so we are going to skip it. And then was Business of Pleasure by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This was also one of my most anticipated book releases of 2023, and it was not as great as I thought it was going to be, but it wasn't disappointing either. This follows Chandler, who is a ghostwriter, and after a bad or disastrous evening out where she's gone to attend the book launch of a book she's ghostwritten, but then the author doesn't recognize her and doesn't even acknowledge her, she sort of spirals and she ends up at a bar where she meets this guy called Drew. But later she finds out that he is a sort of a movie star of sorts who is most famous for a TV show that came out a while ago. His name is actually Finnegan Walsh, and he is about to write a tell-all memoir, and he and his manager want Chandler as a ghostwriter. And now Chandler is conflicted because they had a sort of a wild night out which ended in disappointment, and now Chandler is expected to spend time with Finn to write his book. But Finn also has a proposition for her, because on learning that that particular night wasn't as magical for her as he thought it was, and as he found it, he asks her to teach him bedroom tactics so that he doesn't fall flat on his face in front of anybody else. So what is this going to be? Is this going to be something that they can handle? Can they handle pleasure while doing business with each other? What happens when these two come together forms this entire story. And I liked how communicative both of them are, and I liked the concept of it, but somehow I feel like the plot dragged. It wasn't bad exactly. The good parts were really good, but then when it plateaued, it got boring a bit. Otherwise, the book was interesting. It was fun. It was nice in the way that their relationship played out. It's a good adult romance with communicative characters, and that is something that not many books can be proud of. Next was one of my most disappointing, or rather worst books of 2023. This is it just makes me so angry just thinking about it. This is called The Good Neighbor by AJ Banner, and it had been on my TBR for a long time. I don't know why I bought it. I went on that Kindle buying spree which you have, where you have books for like 19-29 rupees, and what this book turned out to be was yet another woman gets obsessed over a man and goes on a crime spree. I mean, I don't even know if she murders anyone. Yeah, she ends up killing a couple of people. Let's say this main character is in a house and they are in a like cul-de-sac of sorts, and all of the neighbors are like pretty close to each other and all. And then one evening she's gone to bed, her phone or something starts ringing, and then there's fire in her neighbor's house. She goes down, she goes running out, she goes inside, saves the kid and comes out, but the kid's parents end up dying in that fire. And then her house also catches on fire. Then her husband, who's out of town, he comes. She ends up in the hospital. He takes everything into his own hands and he arranges for everything. Through someone, they go to a cottage. She's living there. There's another woman, one of their neighbors over there. She suspects that her husband is having an affair with her. But what exactly is happening in the end? See, I can't even tell you what it is about in totality because it is very convoluted. At the end, it is convoluted, but it is simple. But towards the end, you'll be like, is this it? Is this the only reason you can find that this person got obsessed and then went on a spree like this, like went on an arson spree? Like, what is your problem? Just see, if you are even thinking, contemplating reading this book, don't read it. Just stay away. Trust me, it's just one of those books that you regret spending time on. Even if you spend 2 hours on it, you'll regret spending time on it. Next was a book that you watched me rant over this book for about 47 minutes because I did a full reading vlog about it, and that book is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. Let me clarify this at first. Okay, this is a book that I loved, but I hate the main character, June Hayward. The book, what it represents, what it talks about, the questions that it raises, I love all of it. I just don't like, in fact, I hate the main character. I think, I don't know what kind of dichotomy that is, but somehow that happened. This is a study in the publishing industry about situations that can be, how it treats authors, how it treats authors of color, the social media discourse. It asks questions, it doesn't resolve anything. It's just that it puts these questions into the public's minds to make sure that they are there, so that the next time something like this happens, we question it. So maybe that's the only reason that those are there. I mean, it can be very frustrating. You've seen me lose my mind over this book, over June's actions. I love this book. I gave this 4.5 stars, and yeah, that's all I will say, because I've spoken so much about it. I've done a full reading vlog for Yellowface. If you'd like to go check that out, link here as well as in the description box below. Next is a book that is so sweet, so warm, and it's just so feel good. Like, as I think of this book, I'm like, oh my god, I need chocolate and coffee and everything nice right now. Let me tell you what the book is. It is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree, and this is one of the wowest books ever, because this has coffee and chocolate and baked food, cafe atmosphere, the building of a cafe atmosphere, the promise of adventure, and so much more. I just feel my heart skip a beat every time I think of Legends and Lattes, the cafe. This is the story of Viv, who is an orc mercenary, and she has had enough of that bloody life. So she gives it up. She comes to a place called Thune, has amassed all her fortune, and she comes here. She uses it to start a cafe. So she employs people who she knows will be helpful, and they form a family so sweet, so heartwarming, and the way they build the cafe is just a delight to read about. It's just, oh my god, this is one cafe I would love to just settle into a corner with a book, read, have the coffee, and iced perhaps when it's too hot outside, and have one of Thimble is a baker, by the way, Thimble's delightful pastries. And I'm just like, why does Legends and Lattes not exist? So when something happens that threatens to disrupt Viv's life over here, and it threatens to pull her back into a life of adventuring, what will Viv do, and how will her found family react to this, to the loss of all of it, forms this entire story. And I love it. One of my favorite books of 2023. It is so sweet, so warm. I can't smell, but as I was reading this book, I could imagine the smell of coffee wafting outside. And you know, as bookworms, we all have this dream, I think, to open a book cafe where there are books, where you can read books, you can order coffee, and this was a sort of manifestation of it, and it just made me smile so much. It's just wonderful. I cannot wait to start reading Bookshops and Bone Dust. And last but not the least was The Lost Treasure of Azad Hind Fauj by Piyush Rohankar. I've done a full video review of this book on my channel. If you'd like to go check that out, link here as well as in the description box below. This is a story of the Azad Hind Fauj, the Indian National Army, and it is set during the World War II, and it moves back and forth in time from World War I and then to World War II, and then during the 70s. And Azad Hind Fauj during the 1910s, they are transporting treasure to the Andaman and Nicobar Islands to set up a bank. But the treasure and the crew disappear, as do any search parties. And then we have a British man who is on a mission to find a mysterious weapon, and then there is a man who is trying to find out what happened to his father. How all of this culminates, how all of this is connected, forms this entire story. It is very well researched. It evokes a sense of patriotism, and it transports you back into those times, and you see yourself on the islands. Even if you have never visited Andaman and Nicobar Islands like me, you see the shores. You see the story taking place over there, and that visual is thanks to the author's writing. So this is one book that if you like reading historical Indian fiction, then this is one that you should definitely pick up. So those, plus the other books that I was talking about, the ebooks, the library books, were the books that I read in December 2023. Which of these books have you read? Which ones do you want to read? What books did you read in December 2023? Did you find any favorites? Did you find any least favorites? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this video, please like it and share it to spread the word. And if you like my content and would like to see more from me, don't forget to hit subscribe and click on the bell icon beside the subscribe button to get notified as and when I post new videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, keep reading, keep watching, and add melodrama to your life.